Hey everyone, welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, the deep dive specifically powered by InsideTexas.com. If you're not familiar with Inside Texas, we want you to go join. And of course, we want you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the off-season goodness that Ian and I are going to bring. And one of the things that you're going to help us bring is that on the Inside Texas boards, we took questions about a week ago, or actually a few weeks ago. We were overwhelmed by the deluge of questions. So we've been trying to break them up and address them all in this deep dive. So if you want to be a part of that conversation or be a part of those questions, go join Inside Texas. If you're not doing it, I think you're missing out. And I can't really do anything to you. I just think it would be the best thing for you. Ian, is there anything we could do to these people that aren't going to Inside Texas?
Is there a paywall option on YouTube?
that's hey, paywall's the thing that you definitely want to do if you want to disseminate your message as widely as possible. All right, Ian,
get on here and shut this down, start over.
That's right. We're gonna take our 81 subscribers and charge them $1.50. All right, Ian, we do have some questions we want to address. Anything you want to get off your chest, or should we get straight to the questions?
Let's begin.
Let us begin. Connor, crack producer, give us a question. Rank them in order of importance for a successful 2025 season. At Ohio State, Red River Shootout, at UGA, Texas A&M. Here's the thing, Ian. When I get questions like this, there's the tactical answer, which best sets you up for possibly winning the SEC or going to the playoff. But then there's the, do I really want to answer it would be okay to lose to A&M or OU? No, I don't want to answer that. So let's talk about this. Give me your thoughts, Ian.
Well, I think it's actually kind of easy in that regard. If Texas is going to have a successful 2025, they have to win the Red River Shootout and they have to beat A&M.
Yeah.
They don't have to win at Ohio State and they don't have to win at Georgia.
But doesn't it suck saying that?
I don't care.
Do you like Ohio State?
No. I mean, beating Ohio State would be satisfying for sure. Especially
it also adds to our scalps on the wall, like going into enemy environments that are difficult and then crushing their dreams and leaving early. It's kind of fun.
Oklahoma could be terrible again, though, and I'd still be like, you win that game.
Yeah.
You make sure you win that game if you win any game. I'm going to be like, it's going to be like 20 years. We'll still be doing this. And all the new Texas fans will be like, the Red River Shootout's not actually that important. We have this multi-level playoff system. And I'll be like, shut up, young blood.
All right, let me interject on that. I'm going to picture the John Nash Beautiful Mind meme flashing behind me as I do 7D chess.
I always do.
You should. What if we lose to OU in an otherwise great year, and that allows Brent Venables to stay? It secures him there.
Yeah.
Then does your answer change?
I would like to ask that to his new boss, Jim Nagy. I wonder what. I feel like that may almost matter more than if they win or lose against Texas. Is if that guy comes in and is like, this guy sucks. Fire him.
Right.
I'll bring in assistant from the Eagles or something. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, let's go to UGA. That'll be a tough game, obviously. Losing to these guys 3 times, that sucks.
Yep.
But tactically, wouldn't that be the loss we could best overcome in conference?
Yep.
Because they have the highest likelihood of taking care of business on their end. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That Florida game has the potential to sneak up there as well.
Yeah.
They almost need to be listed. That's the other. I think that game is on par with these for this coming year.
Okay, A&M.
I think you have to beat them just because, the rivalry is important, a little less to me than the Red River Shootout. But I think it's going to be hard to have a playoff resume if you drop that game.
I
If you win all these
feel
others, then you're probably okay. But
when we beat OU, I feel joy, but a large part of that is relief.
yeah,
And when I beat A&M, it's just hilarious because it's just funny to see their reactions because there's nothing funnier. And, and we've got to teach Texas fans, you've got to start doing this. You got to relearn poor Aggies. I'm not sure if people know this. There's been a generational gap because we hadn't played them in a while. But chanting, since time immemorial, Texas fans have sung out "Poor Aggies" at the end of any Texas win. And it drives Aggies insane because they're like, we're not poor anymore. I live in the Woodlands. I own a Ford. I own a Ford Flex. It's just awesome. Like, don't pity us. Us pitying them is the worst thing you can do to them. They hate it. So, all right. So, what are our answers? We think that Ohio State and Georgia are the most losable in a sense.
Yeah, and I think in a month ago, I wrote a column where I said you have to win the Red River Shootout and you have to beat A&M, and then I put Ohio State, Georgia, and Florida in a final tier.
Yeah.
And I said, don't lose more than 2.
If we had to only lose to one team on this 4 of Ohio State, OU, Georgia, A&M, who would that be?
Florida, maybe?
Oh, they're not on the list. We have to answer people's questions, Ian. We love
we could lose one. See, I'm with you that it's really hard to balance. I think spiritually it would be very good for Texas to finally beat Georgia and know that it's possible. It doesn't matter when that happens, though. And that's a team you're liable to get in the playoffs for the SEC championship.
Yeah, true.
Ohio State, as a win over the defending national champions in their own building to start the year, is really feasible because you get the whole offseason and they're all the young quarterback and all that, brand new offensive tackles, Rice tackle that may or may not be as good as they think, right?
A potentially vulnerable DC who could potentially be arrogant the way the Michigan DC was in his first season matchup against us, right?
100%.
All right.
So that feels but that's not really the more meaningful win. It's just the easier one.
Yeah.
So you go. What do you think?
Generally speaking, we don't want to drop SEC games.
Yes. Also the recency bias.
Yeah. Recency bias weighs heavy. So, yeah, I think that's the truth.
But then imagine
I hate picking any loss, but yeah.
I know. Imagine if Arch opens up with a win at Ohio State, how lit, as the kids say, it would be.
It shall be lit. All right. Next question, crack producer. Ian, read the question to the good people.
Are there any obvious areas where Sark can improve his game management?
All right. You want me to take a quick crack at this one?
I have one that stands out to me.
Let's hear it.
He has this knack now over multiple games. I've observed this. They'll get into a 4th down situation at just out of field goal range or midfield, and he'll draw up these clever play designs to pick up that yard, like fake quarterback sneaks and sweeps and all kinds of stuff. And I would rather that he use that creative energy on drawing up a touchdown play.
In the goal line?
No. In the 4th and 1 in midfield.
Oh, throw it down the field.
Throw it down the field. Do something to don't aim for this. If this works, it's a sure thing to get the yard, maybe a little extra.
You're saying don't aim for moving the sticks, aim for 6.
Yes. I think that is Dave Aranda was talking about what he learned from from coaching with Joe Burrow in that 2019 LSU team. And he's I think he later recanted this when his team wasn't good enough to do it. But he was I learned that anytime you have chances to score, you actually are paying heavy opportunity cost when you don't take those advantages to score. Like when you're getting defensive looks and opportunities and matchups, you want to take those. And it's actually a really big deal when you don't.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. That's not one I would have thought of or remembered. I think that's interesting. I'll preface this by saying most college coaches aren't great at game management. Some are putrid. Sark is not putrid.
No.
I think he's pretty okay. The issue I've had with him historically is in a couple of instances, he's allowed Pete Kwiatkowski to run the defense to include the game management part of the defense. In a game where you need to force something because you're behind and the clock is your enemy. And so the slight increase in risk of giving up a big play or a touchdown, which would seal the game, is actually worth it if you could inflict a negative play because that gets you the ball. Like at a certain point in the game, the ball becomes the thing. It's not your fear of giving up a long score. So I pointed this out in the Alamo Bowl against Washington, where they really ball controlled us. And our overall game plan was quite good, actually. I'm not blaming PK for that. I'm saying at a certain point, you had to get the ball. And even if you have a slightly increased risk of giving up a big play. And the truth is, Kalen DeBoer probably doesn't fit into this. Most offensive coordinators get a little tight when they've got a lead and they're trying to run clock. And they can get very predictable. And you can run blitzes, you can run stunts, you can run play calls that can inflict a negative and get you the ball. And I've seen PK do that a few times. And Sark needs to understand he's the head coach. And the direction is, hey, the ball right now and possession of the ball and getting another possession is more valuable than your fear of getting off the game plan.
As you just said, we've even seen PK pull some interesting stuff out of his bag to accomplish that before.
Yeah.
But it's inconsistent. Quick story. In memory of the departing safeties coach Blake Gideon, when I was in college, I went back to my high school, Cedar Park, and watched him play a football game once at the end of the year against Leander when Blake Gideon was on Leander Lion. And they would use him in the Wildcat, and they were just stomping Cedar Park. And Cedar Park was back in like a 2-deep quarter scheme the entire game. And like the whole game, I was yelling, like, scoot those guys up. Blake Gideon is not going to throw the ball. He's going to run the ball again. Get those guys up and stop the run. And then finally, at the very end of the game, they finally did it. And I was like, okay, a little late, but great. And then they overran the play, and he ran for like 70 yards.
See? The coach is right all along. By the way, people will, to give you an idea, like people don't have a good estimation of how athletic like a college football starter is.
Yeah.
So people would always be like, Blake Gideon's not athletic, blah, blah. A absolutely dominant high school player. If you like saw him in person, in good 6A football, right? Cedar Park.
It might have been, it was 4A or 5A at the time. They didn't have
well, in any event.
It was competitive. It was competitive.
Like you forget, like those guys are really good. And it's just a funny thing to be reminded of when people talk trash.
You could go, which of these guys, is anybody on this field going to the University of Texas? And you'd watch for a minute and you'd be like, if it's anyone, it's that person.
Yeah, it's that guy. It's Blake Gideon. All right. Next question, sir. Unless a high-profile DT arrives during the spring window, or one of the 4 expected DT rotational players surpasses expectations in terms of creating organic pass rush up the middle, what schemes would you see PK deploying to offset that? I think I will offer that we will be emphasizing a linebacker and 2 edges. So, Ian, what might that look like? If we can't get great push up the middle, how are we going to still get quarterbacks to move off their spots, inflict negatives, etc.?
Well, I'd say, first of all, in college, in standard downs, it doesn't really matter that much if you can get a really good interior pass rush. There are some teams where you need it against, but I would say the vast majority of college offenses on first and second down, if they're throwing the ball, it's an RPO, a screen, or a play action shot where they're like in max protection anyway. So the value of that interior pass rushing defensive tackle is not the same as like people often have like the NFL mindset where like that pass rushing 3-tech is like the most valuable piece in the world. And it's just not really how the game works in college. When it does matter on third down, then it's going to be like Ethan Burke or Colton Vasek as a 3 technique in the third down package. So I think those are two of the big answers. There is another obvious one that you were priming that I'll let you go with.
But I think we're going to bring Hill.
Yeah.
And when you bring Hill on an interior gap, most likely, although we could also line him up outside and bring him. And you've got Colin Simmons and Trey Moore. I think you're going to get a good pass rush. It's going to take a little longer sometimes if you don't get that immediate compression on a predictable third down. But boy, having really fast guys, all you have to do is get that quarterback to move off his spot. And once that happens, some really fast athletic guys are going to be able to run him down and get him on the ground or make him throw like, as he's fading backwards and the ball gets tipped. And that's all sorts of good stuff happens when that happens. So Hill, Moore, and Simmons are going to be the answer, and we'll deploy them in different ways. I think there's viable ways that you could line up Colin Simmons on a gap, which would be amazing on the interior. And, actually overload that side, give him a free rush up the middle. I think that'd be fun.
They do that a little on third down. Real quick, the Georgia Bulldogs, who follow more of the Bill Belichick strategy, which is standard downs, stop the run, and then manufacture a pass rush when you need it situationally. They had Jalen Walker and Micah Williams and Chaz Chambliss. At least two of those three guys will be drafted in the first or second round. And they had Walker had 6.5 sacks, Chambliss had 6.5 sacks, and Micah Williams had 5 sacks. So like people get a little overexcited about Georgia had as good a pass rush as anybody in the country last year, and they didn't actually get very many sacks. Because most of the time Kirby Smart was like, we're not looking to get sacks. That's not how we're going to win, We probably
had more sacks than Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Not just total, but per game. Also, it's us. Georgia they had great athletic matches, but they got into our protections and they understood what we were trying to do and they exploited it pretty well. So something we're going to have to look at to adjust. All right, Ian, this brings up another question from our viewers exactly addressing this. How many sacks will Simmons have? How about Anthony Hill?
Hills, I feel like it might be a little more variable. He's a blitzing linebacker. I just feel like, he finds opportunities to get to the ball. But I think maybe somewhere in the realm of 5 to 8 again for him.
Okay.
Simmons, I feel like is such a freak that he's going to be, and I don't think teams are going to be able to double him to get him out of games because of Trey Moore and Hill. So I think he's going to go wild. I think he's going to have like upwards of 15 sacks next year. Maybe
wow, that would be awesome. The thing about Colin Simmons is because of his effort level and his athleticism, he falls into plays just that ordinary people wouldn't make. And that's a great way to accumulate sacks. He's a guy who can really turn what would be a pressure for most mortals into getting the guy on the ground. So I think double digits, certainly for Colin Simmons, is going to happen. I'll go, some of it depends on how many games we play, right? But I'd say 11.5 plus. Anthony Hill, I agree with you. I think he had like 8 for us this year or last year. I'd say 5 plus. But I like him more as a blitzer than in coverage. But sometimes he does have to be in coverage just because of the defense.
He's actually not that bad in coverage now either.
No, I don't think he's bad. I just think he's a devastating blitzer.
His last step is run fits. That's where he's still not actually – he's not actually that good yet at run fits.
Yeah, traditional linebacking has been murdered by the spread in Texas.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to find. And, there was quite a while, and I'm not sure if it's still the case, but believe it or not, the state of California ran more traditional high school offenses, like more pro style sort of offenses, like 2 running backs, a quarterback. The quarterback throws it 24 times a game, not 51, right?
Mm.
And it's not all quarterback run game spread, all that like in Texas. And so you actually could diagnose and look at real linebacking. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but when I really investigated it about 5 years ago, that kind of was the case. So, maybe you have to find some of your traditional linebacker somewhere outside of the state of Texas, and then you surround them with a couple of greyhounds who just are great at running around and making plays.
This is maybe a different topic.
All right, a different topic. But here's a topic that's very pertinent to all of you. Those of you who are buying a house or you want to refi an existing house that you've got, this is the guy to call, 832-557-1095. This, of course, is the great Gabe Winslow, the best damn mortgage guy in the great state of Texas. And if you're not in Texas, please still call him. He'll help you out, or he can actually do your mortgage. He's licensed in other states. Or he can get you to a mortgage person in his network that he trusts. It's an informal network. It's not Chase Bank or Wells Fargo, because he is a private broker. He's a private mortgage lender. So he's got 70 different options to shop you around to and get the best possible pricing, get the best possible deal for you. And that is a huge advantage over going into Big Bank USA. Call Gabe. You won't regret it. 832-557-1095. All right, let's do it. Our next question before we go on a Paul Ian tangent. Do you see a possibility of Sarkisian using an O lineman as a blocking tight end, as he has done before when the need called for it? If so, a couple of names who you see as likely candidates.
I think this is fairly likely. Technically, Spencer Shannon is supposed to forestall the need for this, but I don't know if Shannon is a good enough blocker or maybe more importantly, a good enough receiver in line to where they shouldn't just play Malik Agbo like they did in 2023 or Jaden Chapman or some other young athletic lineman.
What about the idea of finding our Roy Miller?
Well,
so we're thinking he's saying tight end. What about a move H-back blocker whose job is to decimate the guy in front of him? And that could be Roy Miller. It could be a Byron Murphy. Is there anyone on the defense that could fill that role who's explosive, low to the ground?
Actually, Terry, maybe. I don't know if they want to use his development snaps on that.
Yeah.
A lot of them that they have now are kind of tall.
Yeah.
So it's not really ideal.
I thought maybe Brevard, the guy from Purdue.
He is actually surprisingly tall.
Oh, is he? Okay. Well,
he's like only 6'3". He's so wide it may not matter. So he's probably your best bet.
The key to that, though, if you're going to bring a defensive lineman to go do it, remember Derek Loki used to do that, is you want someone sort of short-statured and extremely explosive. Like they blow people up at the point of attack. And I don't know if we have that guy on the D-line. So I think you might have to look at more traditional, like blocking tight end who's lined up in line down, hand down at the line of scrimmage. Who's a guy that would pop into mind to maybe do that for us?
Old Ogbo or Chapman, I would think.
Yeah.
As an inline guy.
That's kind of what it feels like, right?
Yeah. Shannon is going to be at least adequate at it, I suspect.
Shannon needs to get up to 260, 265, like as quickly as possible.
He's probably not that far from that. I'm not sure exactly where he is.
Yeah, because he's a legit 6'7", right?
I met a former NFL fullback the other day at a kids soccer practice. And he was like a little bit taller than me and about twice as wide.
Was it Sam Gash?
No. You would never guess. His arms are probably like the width of my shoulders almost. He's a big guy.
Hey, lowest man wins. Low pads are helpful. So yeah, I do think we might see this, but that also depends. It'd be a situational deal, but it also depends on. I don't know. It really depends on the development of some of our tight ends, specifically Shannon. We shall see. Next question. What kind of changes can we expect to see in Ohio State's defense now that Matt Patricia has taken over for Jim Knowles in Columbus? Ian, you probably got some thoughts on this. I will say that the Steve Belichick experience in Washington is helpful potentially in looking at what a philosophy here could be. Steve Belichick, if any of you guys didn't watch Washington, they got crushed in terms of losing talent. And their defense had very little talent. And Belichick did a phenomenal job of coaching those guys up. And the basic approach was don't give up big plays on any neutral down or distance. If someone runs on you a little bit, that's fine. Stop the run situationally. Bring pressure in key situations and like key leverage moments. Other than that, 2 safeties deep. Don't give up big plays. Tackle well. Don't get impatient and try to force something. And I tell you what, the Washington Huskies, for their talent, I didn't see a defense play better than what they actually put on the field than them. They weren't good, but they held down several teams just running that system with not very good talent. So Ohio State is going to have talent. We can be assured of that. So is Matt Patricia going to decide he wants to put his stamp on Ohio State? He's not going to run what Jim Knowles did. He's going to do something different. We're going to see Caleb Downs used differently. What's he going to do? Do you think he might look at that Belichick model, or do you think he has his own approach?
I mean, Belichick always loved man coverage. And I figure, do you remember like a couple of years ago when they had Jeff Hafley? Some people were saying like it was 2019 is what it was. People were saying Ohio State had one of the greatest college football teams of all time, which was so dumb because literally the greatest college football of all time did exist in that season.
LSU, yeah, of course.
Down in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
The media was all caught up in Ohio State. And they just played like basically cover one every single snap with Jeff Okudah, Texas cornerback, and some other guys. And they're just like, we're going to line up and just whip you. I kind of think it might be a little bit like that. And then just Downs free to play down in the box and let him. It's possible Matt Patricia tries to do something smart to show how smart he is. That's
right.
Like
that's what I mean.
Yeah. But, I mean, he should just instill really good base defense.
If they run a bunch of cover one, play man, and bring their pass rush and let Downs run around in the box, they're going to crush bad to average offenses. And they're really going to be a defense you have to game plan. And so Texas and Sarkisian may put up an early scalp, but it'll be really dependent on your overall talent and game planning and your ability to penetrate that. They're not going to have I don't think they'll have an off game if they run that against bad teams or average teams, which is most of the Big Ten. But I do wonder if that Belichick experience at Washington, was that completely born of necessity of the talent he had? Or do you think that's their general approach to college is, we think these college quarterbacks are jagoffs, like they can't hit 4 in a row against cover 2. Like, is that maybe more the approach, or do you think Patricia is going to take his pencil and write on his laminate with it and come up with something super smart?
I mean, there's what the Belichicks will do in North Carolina, and then there's what Matt Patricia will do in accordance with what he thinks the Belichicks would do,
Yeah,
I don't know if those are the same thing. Another thing he could do that would be Belichickian would be to
get a hot girlfriend,
to build a dime package and turn Downs into a dime package linebacker.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And
You could not throw the ball on them.
It'd be like, hey, we had this guy named Patrick Chung, and we would do this. And Downs, you kind of seemed like you could do something similar.
Yeah, it would be very difficult. Very difficult to throw the ball on that. You'd have to find a way to run it. So that's interesting. All right, that's a great question. We shall see. That's going to be a very interesting matchup, but we can tell you that he's not going to run what Jim Knowles did, and Jim Knowles deserves a huge hat tip for what he put in. That was a big part of Ohio State's national championship.
And what he put up with.
All right, next. When Texas fires Rodney Terry, who are a couple of coaches that you'd like Texas to pursue? Well, we don't know that Texas is going to fire Rodney Terry, and we don't want to speculate or conjecture on that. So let's just say that if Rodney Terry were to leave, he takes an NBA job, he decides to coach a team in Slovakia, because that's always been his dream. Whatever. We'll just pretend the Texas head coaching job. We're in the market. We don't care about the mechanism by which that occurred. Some names to throw out.
Better coaches.
What's that, Ian?
I think Slovakia has better coaches.
All right. So the name that is the top of the list for me would be Iowa State's. And I'm also within the realms of realism. So we're not doing an Aggie football coach search, whether they're like, Bill Belichick. Oh, hey, turns out Bill Belichick was available this whole time. Yeah. But TJ Otzelberger, he's the head coach at Iowa State. I think he's a very good coach, and he's done a great job with that program. That's a guy I would talk to. A lot of this is dependent on CDC. The truth is CDC has hired well in some minor sports because effectively you just go find the best coach and then money whip them, right? We just write a bigger check and say, come to Texas.
Yep.
And hey, hats off to them. This is a little different. Texas is a good basketball job. It's not an elite basketball job. It could be made that way with the right hire, but in and of itself, it is not. Moody is ready to explode because that's a great environment if you can get really good basketball in there. So I think Otzelberger is a guy to talk to. The other thing is this would go against type for CDC, but many of the best hires recently, and this is particularly valid in basketball, men's basketball, a lot of the best coaches are coaching mid-majors. And you have to have the boldness and the vision to go hire those guys. So Oates at Alabama, he was hired from Buffalo. The guy who's killing it at Florida, Golden, he was hired from San Francisco, like University of San Francisco. And then the guy at Louisville who's doing well is College of Charleston. So that would be against type for CDC. Typically, he goes for the known commodity. But if he feels like he knows basketball, he feels like he's got a group of people to counsel him that know basketball, he could go make that hot mid-major hire. And that would be cool with me. The dark horse would be Royal Ivey, who is very well thought of as like a developmental coach, and he's been in the NBA for a long time.
Where's he now?
Huh?
What is he doing now?
NBA.
Oh, he's like an assistant in the NBA.
He's an assistant, and he's really good at developmental stuff. He's got a good basketball mind, but he's not proven at the college level. That's the knock against him. And so we don't really know what that would look like. But that's kind of what my menu would look like. Rick Pitino Jr. has done really well at New Mexico. I don't know. I don't know him. I don't claim to know him well enough. I just know it's a familiar name that people are interested in. So that's kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Ian? Even if you're not into a specific name, what about a general hiring theory for Texas basketball?
Well, I've noticed that Texas seems to be really bad at evaluating basketball talent, be it coaches or recruits. Because for years, it's like they tried to go get the top G5 guy. They got Shaka Smart. That was a bust. They tried to get the known commodity guy, money whipped Chris Beard, got him to leave Texas Tech when Texas Tech was really supportive of Beard. He was making good money there.
Beard, I get what you're saying if you want to evaluate it very broadly. Beard was going to bring a high-winning program to Texas, but he stepped on a rake.
Well, all the same.
It's not the same, though.
Well, they got a guy that immediately busted out.
All right, but I think the reasons why he busted out are as important.
It's always something. That's all I'm saying.
All right, that's your point. Is it's always something. Okay.
And like I remember for years, they would go get like the hot shot 5-star power forward center guy, bring him to a campus that had no guards, no one that could get them the ball. And every year it was like, hey guys, this is going to be different this year. It's Tristan Thompson. It's Mo Bamba. It's Jackson Hayes. It's I don't know. There's like 10 of them. And it was never different because the guard play was always bad.
Mm-hmm.
The rosters rarely fit together. So I don't know the landscape super well. I actually would be totally happy to just bring Rick Barnes back. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he would come back. I think he's pretty well situated in Tennessee. I regret firing Rick Barnes. I was like, we got to do something different. And now I'm like, we have a good thing. It was fine.
The problem with Barnes is I think the shock of his firing made him reevaluate some stuff, and he became a better coach. I think I love Rick Barnes personally. I think he's the best coach in Texas basketball history. I don't think that's debatable. People will say Abe Lemons, but that's more about being like very colorful and likable. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to play that out, but I don't know. If we felt confident in our ability to hire, and supposedly basketball is kind of CDC's thing, maybe don't be scared of going after that mid-major if you can't money whip a name-proven commodity. That would, take a shot, because a lot of really good programs that are comparable to Texas, I think, have elevated because of their willingness to go out and grab a hot, really good mid-major coach who doesn't have the name rec.
I would like to be interested in Texas basketball again, but
Yes.
And I was there before everything went awry with Chris Beard. But it's so I watched the NBA like in the playoffs and the end of the year, and once you get used to that, it's really hard to go from the NBA to poorly done college basketball.
It is true, although I find much of the NBA somewhat unwatchable. I guess you had the caveat of playoff, right?
Yeah, I don't watch bad NBA. But going from good NBA to like the guards like hesitantly moving the ball poorly and awful spacing and like guys that can't make decisions or don't know what to. And it's tough too because college basketball teams are just like packed in the paint and zone. And
yeah, and then you go watch Duke and Auburn, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
This is good.
Whenever I watch the madness, it's like, oh, this can be an aesthetically pleasing product. It's not college basketball; it's just freaking Texas.
True. Well, and also your ability as a coach to evaluate talent and assess fit and roster construction is everything.
Yes.
Because talk about mercenary. I mean, college basketball was always more mercenary than football, partly because you can transform your team utterly with like 2 guys, right? But it's even more so now. So if you don't have a methodology to quickly integrate teams, if you can't scout out particularly guard talent and what you might develop it into or what their strengths are, because every freaking point guard now is a combo guard, which means they can't play point guard like TJ Ford, and they can't shoot just blanked on like a great UT shooter. I don't know, but Travis May. But yeah, I just think you have to have some ability to build out a roster, and that's really one of the key aspects of hiring a head coach. I think it's all there for Texas to explode in basketball. The Moody Center is awesome. Texas fans will go to basketball games. They will support the team if it's a winner.
In my day, we packed out the Irwin Center when I was.
Yeah, I've been to many sold out Irwin Centers. For Rick Barnes and also Tom Penders, by the way. Yeah. So, it is possible. And people who say, no, it can't. Well, you lived through just that little Shako Smart window where it was dispiriting to watch Texas basketball. So, all right. Well, hey, I think that's our final question. Ian, any closing thoughts on any of these excellent questions submitted by the people?
Our basketball program is like the Texas A&M football program. It's like this perpetual sleeping giant that like wakes up and steps on a rake and knocks itself back out.
Yeah, although our basketball teams accomplished more. We've done things like go to Final Fours and go to lots of Elite 8 and
football
Sweet
team?
16s.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
One other thought, just for pure humor: Texas Tech has a good coach in basketball. It would be absolutely hilarious to go money whip their coach again and take them. That would be so funny. Obviously, we would mandate that he not bring his girlfriend, just as a precaution, even if the woman's a saint. All right, Ian. As Ian says, it's always something, and this has always been something. This is your deep dive. For Ian Boyd, I'm Paul Wellington saying, hook 'em. Thanks.